of this area in the past, most of it was undeveloped and it was still like wood frame buildings. And now what's down here is there are these massive structures that, as you can see here, literally takes up an entire city block. Now, the question, or before I even say the question, just to inform you, this area is referred to as the Platinum Triangle. And when City Council passed doing this development, they said they were going to be adding 20,000 units to this one area.
All right, everyone. It's Gary Gileno, GRINDALL61. And he's making more of these urban planning videos, which is a topic, a type of interest that I'm certainly the most passionate about. I will tell you, yes, there are problems with these higher density developments, SCAG, but once again, Gary Gileno is not telling you the whole enchilada of what's going on. So here are the so-called stack and pack units in Anaheim that Gary Gileno is referring to. We need high-density development, but certainly not like this. I'm not a fan of its exterior design. He doesn't tell you that the reason why, partially why these units are being built and some of the benefits. Now, I'm not going to make a completely negative attack video on Gary Gileno, but it's my job to make sure that every time he makes these videos, you guys get another side of the story. Because if you don't, then you'll never understand what's going on. This is where a lot of people who come from all over the political spectrum need to start doing. I will give Gary Gileno a lot of credit for exposing the immigration problem, how dirty and dysfunctional the state of California is, the reduction of our civil rights. Yes, I agree. There are a lot of problems with the COVID pandemic, the shutdowns, the mask mandates. I'm not going to deny that. And I'm certainly going to agree with him on the insanity of the social justice movement. But then again, I have different views about him when it comes to urban planning. Now, once again, do I believe what these so-called smart growth, sustainable developments, these SCAG people are doing a good job? Absolutely not. But do I believe in everything what Gary tells you? No. And do I believe that the solution is just to basically undo all this and we're going to be happily ever after? No. So let's take a look at our record. So I will give Gary Gileno, he's done a lot. He's been covering my safety. You know, I did get punched at a Sanctuary City Cudahy rally. You can see here he's done a lot, praising my views about immigration in sanctuary cities, city of Riverside. This was about 4 years ago. Believe it or not, I was still living in Southern California. And of course, we did a nice debate together. We were able to be civil. But the fact is, Gary Gileno has not absorbed my points. He has not understood that there are people who want to live in these different types of environments. And he's continuing his narrow perspective viewpoints. That's the thing. And for the record, I did fight SCAG, the regional agencies in Aliso Viejo, California. At that time, I lived in the nearby city of Laguna Niguel. I worked in Aliso Viejo. This was back in 2015. So if you think that I am somehow on the boat of Agenda 21, sustainable development, stack and pack, no, think again. But the problem is that does not mean that everybody who criticizes this program understands fully what's going on. This is the problem. We need to stop this side or that side paradigm. We need to put this in the garbage. That's why our urban planning system is messed up. That's why our political system is messed up. That's why people are not even doing well in investing as well, because they're falling into the doom and gloom system or the perma US stock market bull system. People need to get out. They need to be in the mixture of gray. Well, let's take a look at a little bit more clips. This is me in 2012, exactly 9 years ago, exposing Rosa Koire. And it got a lot of downvotes, to be fair. The fact is, a lot of people don't want to understand. No, I'm not for a UN takeover our urban planning and our land use system. I did peacefully interview her friend, Heather Goss, they're both from the Bay Area, about this. But once again, they're not telling you the whole story. And what is really the whole story? Well, the fact of the matter is that, first of all, not everyone who is behind this transition away from the car culture, sprawl, all that whatever is a tyrant. They want something better. Let's take a look at this. Now, if he's really about the truth, this is his Facebook account. You can see here, he has blocked me on Facebook. Why do you think that's the case? To be honest, I wasn't spamming him. But the reason why he's probably done this is because, well, either he doesn't want to hear other people's side, or who knows, he could be a propagandist. I don't know. There's probably a less likely chance that that is really the case. But once again, I'm not a fan, or I'm on the side of sustainable development, smart growth, Agenda 21. But, however, I have talked about the fact that yes, we do need mixed use development. We do need transit-oriented development. We do need pedestrian-friendly approach. But the problem is what these guys are doing, these so-called SCAG, smart growth, sustainable development types, they're not doing a good job. So in other words, we need a third movement. But he's not telling you this. A lot of people don't know. It's kind of like saying, well, just because, I have progressive views like Jimmy Dore, that I believe in Joe Biden and I'm a fan of even Bernie Sanders. No, that's why Jimmy Dore joined the People's Party along with this economist, Chris Hedges. So stop this two-sided paradigm. And speaking of tyranny, about a year ago, this was just before the pandemic. Now, I know Kunstler has got a lot of his predictions wrong, but he's certainly got a lot of his predictions right about the sinking of the American life. This was just before the pandemic, believe it or not. And he is for mixed use. He is a critic of sprawl. He is for a more pedestrian-friendly lifestyle, but he's been a total critic of the establishment. And no, he's not a fan of getting people into cities. He's not a fan of the high-speed train. But does that mean that James Howard Kunstler is somehow a tyrant? In fact, many alternative media networks, a lot of the channels that promote, doom and gloom, that promote all these alternative voices, they've interviewed James Howard Kunstler, so how can he really be a tyrant? I just don't really believe in that. And by the way, James Howard Kunstler is a new urbanist. And the new urbanist has done plenty of projects that include single-family homes. Again, I'm not a fan of new urbanism. There's a lot of flaws. I'll do videos about it. But new urbanism has been one of the organizations that has been criticized as being a tool of the United Nations Agenda 21. But I doubt Kunstler is part of Agenda 21. Speaking of Stack and Pack, this is a Stack and Pack building, 5-story building in nearby Fullerton, California. This was built in 1910. So back in 1910, this was when Fullerton had hardly any people. Were people living in tyranny? Were people forced to live in these Stack and Pack units? No. In fact, we did plenty of high-density development cities all over America, including Los Angeles, Pasadena, New York, Chicago, Boston, and perhaps even in Las Vegas, the Mob Museum. But why isn't Gary telling you that? We weren't living in a tyrannical society. As a matter of fact, back then, we didn't have hardly any codes and regulations that would restrict high-density, mixed-use, narrow street, pedestrian-friendly, and transit-oriented lifestyle. And by the way, the city of Fullerton is very close to Anaheim, and believe it or not, there was a streetcar stop, which you guys know who took out the streetcar systems, the automobile and petroleum industries. Does Gary, Gileno, and Rosa Koire ever tell you that? No. Why? because they're either narrow-minded or they're propagandists. Now, I am for high-density development, but not necessarily like the ones that, well, Gary Gileno has been promoting or being against. Pardon me. This kind is not as pretty as this kind. If you want to do high density, do it something like this. Both of these styles are Mediterranean, Italian Renaissance revival, but this is at a higher quality. All right? Gary is not telling you all this. That is the problem. Where is Gary Gileno telling you that it was plenty of government controls and regulations? When you talk about the street dimensions, parking minimums, subsidies, building setback, height restrictions, all of that has made a transition from a more grid, pedestrian-friendly design into a more spread out, car-dependent, single-use zoning system. How come Gary Gileno is not telling you this? Now the question is, why are these units being built? Now, could there be some evil control behind it? Partially, yeah. ICLEI is not a fake organization, but what he's not telling you is the fact that there have been many regulations that have been removed that allow this to happen. They have the freedom to do it. There were height restrictions. They are removed now. Why isn't Gary Gileno telling you this? And if they were so interested in a tyrannical system, well, then why don't they make it 40 stories? Because if they all want to stack us so much, why don't they go taller than that? And by the way, speaking of housing affordability, how come Gary never tells you the real reason why prices are so high? Have you ever wondered why California is so expensive? Now, some people will say, well, California makes it very difficult to spread out, and there is all these CEQA laws and all that. Yes, that's part of the reason. But however, if California was 100% urbanized, there would still be expensive areas. If you look at the most expensive areas, you will find that they're mainly along the coast. So what's going on? There's not enough room along the coast. So what do? You go up. You have to build more skyscrapers. All right? We can learn from Manhattan, Chicago, Japan. It's easier in those areas to go up. Believe it or not, there are still many height restrictions in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco. Even John Stossel has talked about this. Where is Gary Gileno talking about this? Now, of course, Gary Gileno will tell you, oh, well, it's because of them illegals, and if you kick them out. Look, that is somewhat of a factor, but that's not the main reason. Of course, my main problem with those people is that they're nothing but political pawns. But what Gary is also not telling you is that if you go up, you increase the supply, and therefore you reduce scarcity. Is Gary telling you why Interstate 11 is being part of the infrastructure packages of the new administration? Is Gary even telling you the fact that the 605 freeway right here, there's plans to widen it? I thought they were trying to get off of our cars. He's giving you a lot of half-truth, ladies and gentlemen. And what about solutions? What solutions does this guy have to offer? What he's telling you about this? And of course, look, this guy is a very negative individual. I have to be honest with you. You know, he has changed his voice about Donald Trump. He initially supported him, and then now he's calling him a sellout. Look, I never endorsed him on this channel, but I will tell you this. I will praise him on at least, believe it or not, raising the fact that immigration and trade has been spread out to many of the American people. But going right here, look, this is a real estate development right here in southeast part of Orange County, just east of San Juan Capistrano. They're still being built, single family home, car dependent, freeways being extended. I thought they wanted to get out of our cars. Why isn't Gary Gileno telling you all this? He once again is giving you a lots of partial truth. And so what does Gary Gileno believe? What is his solutions?
By Disneyland, 20,000. So the question that we need to be asking ourselves is, who's going to live here? And these are what are referred to as luxury apartments, and it costs thousands of dollars a month to live in these kind of units with the mixed use, with the storefronts on the bottom and then the apartments up at the top.
Okay, so let me first of all address that point of view. Who's going to live here? Nobody wants to live here. Well, if nobody wants to live here, then why are the prices so high? Well, maybe there's a good amount of demand for them. And what is the problem of having shops below housing? I mean, wouldn't it be great if people can walk down the store or walk down the building across the street to get their errands done? So maybe we can rely less on Amazon and even the large corporate chains. Maybe we can rely less on registration, gasoline costs, car payments, all these other different things. I mean, car culture does have a lot of restrictions, has a lot of pain, struggle, and costs. Why doesn't he tell you that? It reduces pollution, it reduces stress. It allows people to get to know their neighbors. You don't want all this isolation. Think about it.
And, you know, who is going to live here? Who can afford to live here, considering the world we're living in right now, where the economy's shut down, and it's just rows and rows and rows of these buildings. And the last time I was here, which was 5 years ago, you know, a lot of this was just wood frames, and now you're just seeing what this...
Well, first of all, if they are mandating mixed-use development and only high density, then I'm definitely against it. And if they're using it as a way to pump foreigners in, I'm definitely against it. But I'm definitely more for a market-oriented approach. Now, these views are not just views that I have. I spoke to Ruben from We the People Rising. Even he's not aligned with Gary Gileno anymore. Even he agrees with me with a lot of the views on urban planning. Folks, the fact of the matter is that we've never had a real free market in urban planning since the days that we built the Fullerton downtown, the 1920s. Gary is not telling you, but what is his solution? Does he prefer the car dependent, the car culture with all the flaws that it has, all the government red tape? Look at the flawed layout. This is me in a protest in Las Vegas about Richmond American Homes. Does he believe in this cookie cutter tract housing development, all this garbage, the poor layout, the low quality construction, all this useless gated HOA, all the poor quality architecture? What are your solutions, Gary? We want to know. Maybe if you're having all these homes that are so close together, at least like the old-fashioned cities that we see in Fullerton, people can walk across the street, walk to go to school. In these new neighborhoods in Las Vegas, you can't really do that. It's not healthy. But either way, the whole problem with all of this, and look, I agree there are many flaws with this development. I'm not a fan of their architectural design. The point is that Gary doesn't want to see the problems with this car-centric, cookie-cutter, housing tract, strip mall system. He's very narrow-minded. And I'm not going to tell you that he's a horrible person. I think he's very likely to be a great guy. Either way, whether it's this system or the system that he opposes, keep in mind, it is Wall Street that is pumping all this. It's the Federal Reserve. It's the low interest rates. So if you really want to get things really done, you got to go to the source. It's the low interest rate economy that's pumping all of this, and you take it out, it's game over. All right, everybody. I want to make sure that you really spread this information, understand what's going on, and you have to understand that the issue that my channel has not grown so well compared to Gary Gileno's channel. And it's important to know that you get these other perspectives and other views so you expose the truth and understand what's going on. You spread this information to his friends, his fans, his followers, or everybody in the urban planning community. Because it's becoming a lot harder for me and many others to spread their ideas on YouTube. And the further we spread this information, the more other ideas we have, the easier it is that we not only understand what's going on, but more importantly, we get the truth and we get real solutions that work for everybody. Because I can tell you, the system that Gary Gileno is against and he's covering up, they're both heavily flawed. If you want more solutions about urban planning, I suggest you look at this channel and you look at future videos. Please subscribe to make sure that we get real ideas and real deals for the people.